So really great sessions, and just like we saw in the talk, there is food effect on how the drugs are taken up. I'm sure there is food effect on how information is being taken up right now. So this is supposed to be actually more like a fireside chat. We'll try to keep it informal, more engaging. I've already had interaction, and it was already like I know them very well, and though we are meeting for the first time. So the whole idea, and I will let you all introduce yourself, but we've been hearing since the morning how important it is, to think about regulatory aspects and to think about it from the very beginning, right? So while you introduce, even though this question I wanted to keep for one of the last thing, is so that we have attention from the audience, is what is it that one of the biggest hurdles that you faced in your entrepreneurial journey? And how did you decide, and at what point, you felt that I wish this was different? So with that, I would like Kamal to please start, please with introduction, because I don't want to keep, whatever is available on the online forum, but more personal at your level.
Very good afternoon, and thank you very much for the panel discussion, and thanks Dr. Ramjigar and CCMB team. So myself is Kamal Prasad and representing company called PathnSitu Biotechnologies, and the founder and CEO of PathnSitu Biotechnologies. So we are mostly working on the medical devices under Class C products and also Class A medical devices. So the products what we are making is like tumor biomarkers, which are like primary antibodies for the cancer diagnostics for immunohistochemistry application. Also, we have an end-to-end of histopathology equipment that we manufacture here. So the journey for first, we started in 2013. That time there was no medical devices regulation formally planned. But since I worked in US for almost a decade, having US FDA and ISO 13485 experience. So what we have done initially from beginning itself, we started our application or the dossier or the DMF device master file or DHF design history files according to the US FDA, which made us very easy when 2017 regulations came in. And one of the approval given by Madam Vishala Madam. So that was something, initially it was a great challenge, but again, it is now as on today, the MDR rules have been defined very high level. In fact, even Singapore and USA have a similar kind of rules.
Thank you. I will ask questions, but so what I learned from you was you have exported to more than 20 countries, right? So what are the challenges that you may have faced? Just if you can add as we continue with the other panelists before that.
As of today, we are exporting to almost 20 different countries, and each country regulations are entirely different. Mostly the countries what we are exporting to Middle Eastern countries and some of the European countries. And in fact, we do have a branch in US, so US also we are working on. According to the medical devices, there is 510K approval is required, PMA, pre-market access approval. Then having CDSCO, the manufacturing in India, every country require a free sale certificate to be given when they are importing. Along with that, ISO 13485 and also when you go to the European market, you have to have your product to be CE marked. So when we go there are so many regulatory bodies. It is the founder or the promoter responsibility to choose which body is being accepted by each and every country. So there are, in fact, in CE itself, there are so many other CE marking is there, but some countries they take only BSI.
I'll reserve my other questions. Shiva, would you like to introduce yourself? And also one thing, we've seen throughout today the question that, you should start thinking regulatory at the very beginning. But as a researcher, as an academic, sometimes when I'm doing research, I really don't know what my product is going to look like. Did you face any challenge? Did you have to change gear? So after you introduce, if you can also say a little bit.
Thank you for the opportunity, AIC-CCMB, Ramji sir and other team. I'm Shiva. Educationally, I did my PhD in pharmacology. Alzheimer's disease was my thesis on. Before starting the company in 2016, I worked in IQVIA, pharmacovigilance, for 1.5 years. and then started this company in 2016 December. We are a deep science respiratory drug development company. So our product is antibiotic nasal spray for treating sinusitis. Say like there is no targeted nasal spray. You can find otrivins and fluticazones, mometazones, which are corticosteroids and nasal decongestants. But we developed an antibiotic because when you take antibiotics, there are a lot of side effects, gut-related side effects. We wanted to develop a nasal spray so that it is precisely delivering into the upper respiratory tract or into the maxillary sinuses. That's the product we developed. And we are primarily an IP-oriented company. We have so far 12 patents and 6 of them are granted patents. And coming to your question, like when we started, like definitely we did not do anything. Just the idea of why shouldn't we deliver antibiotics through the nasal route? That's the idea which we started. No regulations. We did not. However, I have worked in pharmacovigilance, but we did not know the exact pathway. What is the say like whether we have to take 505(b)(2) pathway or subsequent new drug application in India, or Form 44 or Schedule M, GLP, GCP, all these guidelines we did not know. After interacting with several founders, I understood that anybody will start with the same intention, with the same kind of questions. So you are more obsessed with the product. You want to develop the product and you don't have the bandwidth, both in terms of energy, capital, human resources. You don't have bandwidth to look all these departments. You call it as funding, or you call as product development, you call as regulatory pathway, you call as clinical approach. Like you interact with a lot of doctors, what should be the endpoints? All this we come to know in the journey. Like when you start, definitely it's the product, only the product. Later on, when you get into the market will hit you like anything. Then you will learn. That's like my experience is for the first 3 years, we spent a lot of time on the product. Then next 3 years, we went to the market hit us. You have to stand that, then learn, and then you start the journey again and understanding all these separate departments required. What is happening in the drug discovery ecosystem, in the capitalistic drug discovery ecosystem, how that functions. What is that you have to consider when you are looking at the regulatory markets? Like in US, you have a more insurance kind of a thing. What are the population size you should target? In India, how should you target the population size? What are the population or the customers you have to take into consideration? What is the consumer behavior you have to take into consideration? It's a journey. Like first thing is about product. You start with the product, you do it, and then get into the market. You learn it.
If you were to change one thing, right? I know this is for later, but because we learned, right? So you start with the product and then you start with the regulatory compliance, right? But if you don't know your product, so you're sort of catch 22 there, right? And by the time you said you did the product for 3 years and then you got into regulatory. So do you think, however, if given a chance, you would be able to incorporate regulatory from the very beginning?
Answer is yes, but again, you don't have the time and bandwidth. Primarily, you don't have time because you need to spend time. Even if you look at large case studies or most of the new drugs or new products come through in-licensing or acquisition to the large companies. So what I understood after interacting with the companies is that why they don't allocate the capital or human resources for new product development. It's a bit challenging thing for them until unless you have that intention or passion for the products. So when you are starting, that is the only thing you have. You have the passion and intention to develop the product. So what you do is develop the product. In our case, what has made a significant change is when we reached out to companies to buy our product, we knew our limitations. Like from day one, we are clear that we want to be an IP oriented company. We want to license the product to large company. We don't have a bandwidth to distribute the product across all the retail pharmaceutical stores or distribution centers. So there are companies which are generic oriented, so they can take the product across India, which have like 2.5 lakh medical representatives. That dynamics are different. We cannot play that role. So our limitations we knew. When we reached out to companies for in-licensing the product, we have the patent, we have the technology, we have all the documentation, not documentation, I'll speak about that. We have the product, we have IP. Then after interacting with them, we understood like what is the kind of documentation we need to have. And how should we propose or pitch ourselves or position ourselves when we are presenting, they have all the different teams. The manufacturing team they have a specifications, QA team, QC team, they have R&D teams, preclinical teams, clinical teams and all. Everybody will like literally dig deep, try to understand. Then we started knowing like where we are lacking. We have the core thing, but not the real the real documentation to present before them. Then we started pulling in all the resources whom we knew, say like AIC-CCMB or through IKP Knowledge Park, IKP Prime, BIRAC. You speak with them and you understand from the precedented cases, how did they present their cases. We can find those documents online or speaking with those companies. Then eventually you build a structure for your company. That's how eventually you start getting. For us, it is about selling the product. Like you call it as out licensing the product. For somebody else, it could be really regulatory pathway. Something in the market will hit you. That's for sure. Yes. For somebody starting really fresh, really amateur, you make the product somehow with all your expertise and with all your intentions. But at the end of the day, when you reach out to the market, you will come to know. You should be ready for that. Mentally prepare for that. Yeah.
So you are mentally prepared to be strong. Yeah.
Mentally prepared for learn that.
Sure. Thank you. Aditi, you've been please introduce. Also, I wanted to for you also to reflect. Is there customer education involved as you go through your journey? Because there is regulatory. You have to employ that in your process, and then there is convincing your customers also that these are compliant.
Yeah. Hi. Good afternoon. I'm Aditi, co-founder CEO Briota Technologies. Briota Technology is a company working in health tech. Right now we are having a service or a product called Suraksha. It is a backpack which holds more than 6 non-invasive POCT devices, and we are doing screening for more than 12 NCDs and working very closely with MOHFW. And we started our journey in 2018-19 when we had only respiratory device on our mind. With mine and my founders, we had some at home, we saw asthma patients suffering, and we thought that, democratizing spirometry, making it more digital, with the help of AI/ML, that is the way to move forward to take care of the respiratory illnesses. 2019, we were ready with the device prototype. We started doing some, clinical trials in Sassoon because we are from Pune, and we decided to have a collab to go ahead in the market in 2020 March. So as everybody went through, we were hit by COVID. The moment we were hit by COVID, we didn't know what to do with our technology. The technology is in my hand. We have invested in the production, and what are we supposed to do? And when one door closes, another opens, and the another door was BIRAC. BIRAC saved us, literally. We did one project with BIRAC called COVID Consortium, and there we used our device to identify the combination of COVID impacted people the people who already have some respiratory illnesses. Okay. When we started working on that, the regulatory part didn't hit us at that time because we were hit by COVID, we were hit by many things, and we didn't know, are we sure we want to go ahead with this? Because we are not sure this is the final product we are bringing into the market. He rightly said, any company in a startup who has a product, they are so obsessed with product that the market analysis, requirement of the market, are you ready, market ready, all these things come later. The product becomes your baby and you keep on working on that product improvement. In 2022, when things settled down and we got to know that yes, this is a final product we had, we went ahead with the route of CDSCO. We are CDSCO certified with our Spiro Pro. What ma'am is asking is, how will you explain the customer, right? So, sir said very rightly in the morning, मुझे 1 लाख का iPhone चाहिए, 10,000 का कुछ नहीं हो सकता. Exactly. You go to any international pharma company who's working in India and you tell them, this is my product, this is made in India. इसका बाहर प्राइस 1.5 लाख रुपया है, but I am a made in India CDSCO certified company. I am giving you a digital solution with all the studies done. I have the proof, efficacy, everything. But they said, we get it from Europe. I said, but I am giving you a CDSCO certified made in India device, which will give you a better impact considering your population in India. The algorithms are based on Indian population. So this kind of thing still persists in the business. And that is where then startup like us, we have to look at CE/FDA, which becomes beyond our boundaries because they cost not less than 40 lakh rupees. So right now, yes, as you said, telling people that made in India CDSCO is the way, and we are good. It is a little difficult right now as well in the market.
Yeah. I would like Kamal to, so you have gone to, like we discussed earlier, 20 different countries, right? And did you also feel such biases that you mentioned, it's made in India? And from where I'm coming is, I understand there is a lot of money that is associated, and of course as funding, as somebody whose founder has a vision to take products from India globally. First, of course, helping India, but also take it globally. What is it that you faced, and is there something we can do to change that mindset? Of course, applying regulatory, being diligent, not cutting corners, those are all very important. But did you face some challenges, and what is it that we can do differently?
Yeah. So great. Yeah, as Aditi said, definitely, even in India, a lot of people mindset, oh, is it from India product? Oh, okay, we have product coming from US or Europe. So the way what we play it in the market, we have an office in US and keep the US office as a brand, and keep the manufacturing here, and show you all your certification from here, and still you have a US FDA in the India company. So this way, what we have done, we played a little bit of, jugaad, I can say, but still we could, even in India, we had a lot of challenges in that way. But lately, the moment we put address of the US on the box, including India, the people said, okay, the product coming from USA, one thing. Second thing is, again, they again say, what is India then? What operation you do? Then our competition is very smart, right? They will say, no, they don't do in US, they always make in India. So again, another challenge is coming. So what we say in general, what is the difference between the product you're getting from US and India? Can you do a blindfold? We did a lot of challenge of the blindfold, given 4 different antibodies, I would say, 4 different antibodies and different blindfold, and you pick up which is PathnSitu antibody. Mm-hmm. One thing. Second thing is going exports. So now what we are doing, still we have a lot of challenges. When we go to all these international trade shows, we go to all the pathology trade shows across the globe, at the same time, where they will ask, oh, product from India, that's okay, we'll talk later. So now we have changed our thing. We are going into the Canada now, having office Canada, making manufacturing in Canada. From there, same entire R&D validation, everything is been in India. Mm-hmm. You don't have to spend a lot of money on R&D validation, all your product development cost. Only thing you just transfer the technology, get certification from local body like Health Canada or MDSAP or ISO 13485, and make in Canada. Only you put on the money on the manufacturing itself. Mm-hmm. So your product is ready, your development is already done, and you can go across the globe. So this strategy we just applied. With this, we could enable another 35 countries.
Wow. Okay. So, I'll open up for the audience, and, if there is something, suggestions, how we can educate, our Indian, the Make in India drive is strong right now, right? It's a good time to be here. It's good time to develop products, but there is still a barrier. And definitely, like we've discussed, like you also mentioned, we had if it's cheap, then it shouldn't be that good, right? So we've already faced. I had a question for you, Aditi. So with AI, and I believe you are employing that. How sensitive are we in terms of, patient data security? Right, and is our regulatory framework, we had a glimpse today earlier, that if we are employing, we have to have. are we able to ensure, educate, and our people don't care? Because I go anywhere and they are just copying my Aadhaar card like there is nothing, like no secure, or like it's not private anymore. Thanks.
See, I will definitely say there are two things in this. Okay, so for example, I go to any probably a lab for my regular test, and they take my data, right? And that data, the moment you touch a lab, you start getting an insurance ka email on Gmail, take this health insurance, or there will be just a random Cipla ka ye medicine ka, you start getting. So these are the data links which we see when you are giving your data. Public healthcare systems are the gold mines of data when it comes to pharma companies, right? But here, as a startup, or here coming from a startup community, I can definitely tell you that data privacy is one of the topmost priority in all the startup, if you see in India, because they themselves have faced what happens if your data is leaked. Okay. In most of the organizations who are working at public health, or like us who are working in CSR portfolios as well, we are HEPA certified. 27001 is another thing we went through. We took the certification. See, any data which is coming to us, okay, is required because we are doing a AI/ML combination based algorithms. AI/ML combination algorithms need highest data for finding out those algorithms. Engineering people can understand what I'm saying. And when that data is required, you can have the walls where you hide the name, age, sex, and mobile number. Sorry, not the sex, mobile number. Because the particular data which is useful for any clinical analysis or any, data analysis is the age and the male and female. Okay, you don't need the names and mobile numbers, which are the private data. On the contrary, I believe that, taking that data, going back to them, talking to them and calling them and saying ki kuch to problem hai hamare paas, these are the malpractices happening. Okay, I will not deny that. I have seen myself that the data has been taken. So I will not give a name, but there are companies who does this medical camps. Okay, and medical camps in any rural sector is to gather the data. So two things to what you asked me. There is a leakage, no doubt about it. But if you ask me about the startup community is following data privacy to the highest level. And that is why when I do the data transfer to Government of India, it goes the way it is required. But if it is a private CSR or anything, there is a masking of data which takes place at the background. And then we write and give that these data will not be used to somebody or given it to somebody, to the pharma company. But the ethics we need to follow comes from the startup community, that much I can tell you.
That's actually really, really heartening to know. And the fact that, we are starting to think and everybody has become more proactive in our own data security. On that note, Shiva, you mentioned you will talk about documentation. How important it is. So you're done PhD, I've done PhD, I'm telling, I was very bad when I was doing my PhD in terms of documentation. And we are not taught how important. And today, if anything, from the day you start to think about your product, documentation becomes very important. So can you elaborate, how did you inculcate that habit in your organization?
We need to have two sets of documents. One is for IP, and the second one is for regulatory or the science part, the actual product part. The IP part, what we understood is after filing 3-4 patents, we have to define the claims first, because as a part of your IP strategy, not one patent for one product, we should have 3-4 patents. Say like it can be product patent as per section 3D, you can define certain claims. In India, treatment claims are not acceptable, but in US you can file for treatment claims. So on, so product can be used for treating this indication. So that is IP set. You have to work with an IP consultant, draft that legal part, IP claims we have to define first, then comes the body. So you get a clarity of thought, what you're working on, how you're working on, that's the IP part. The regulatory part and the science part, you have to keep the science at the forefront. Why should somebody look at you, look a company like us? Because they have large cap tables, tens and thousands of crores as profits, and I want to associate with them or license my product to them, why would they look at me? They have large manufacturing units, USFDA approved manufacturing units. The only fundamental thing is because we put the science at the forefront. So we should be able to demonstrate that using set of documents. As a team, what we started after realizing this importance of the documentation part is, we started everybody in the team, we're a small team, 10-member team. Everybody in the team have to read 3 articles, whatever it could be related to. We pick the precedented cases. Say, for example, in our case, we are dealing with nasal sprays. Are there any nasal sprays in the market which were developed from a tablet? Say, like the product is available in the form of a tablet and injection, then they developed into nasal spray. You pick those precedented cases. In our case, we took something called Tramadol nasal spray. It was available for surgical pain in the IV format. Torrent Pharma developed as a nasal spray. What is the path they have followed? That is the regulatory path. Which path will it fall under? NDCT rules 2019. It fall under subsequent new drug. Once the path is clear, then you pick the documentation part. So preclinical data. Before getting into the preclinical data itself, you speak about the product specifications, the stability data, and then you speak about the science part. When I say about science, you have to develop, say, the product is available in the form of tablet. What is the dose you are going to give through the nasal route? You have to do the dose optimization. For that, you have to do isobolograms, you have to do allometric scaling, you have to try in the animal models, and you have to do PKPD modeling, IVAVC models. All these mathematical models, pharmacokinetic models, we built in-house, but we did not document it. You start looking from a documentation perspective. How can we structure this and put it in a proper regulatory format so that a regulator can understand, as well as somebody seeing on the other side of the table, like an in-licensing company also can understand. So you understand what are the building blocks for the product, which will eventually help you to build processes in the company. When I say processes, like if you want to develop a new product now, you have certain processes, what you need to look first. From an IP perspective, this is the design you need to follow. This is the strategy you need to follow. From a product development perspective, this is the strategy you need to follow. You have at least, may not be 100% clarity, but some sort of clarity you have. So that's how we started. Then once you have that building blocks, you start refining it. Say, like, you have versions. Similar, like the way you have clinical trial protocols, you have versions. Again, for clinical trials, like IP, the way you would define the claims first, we have to define the endpoints. What we do is, we look from a clinical inference point, how you treat the patient and all. But endpoints we have to define. For a new product, what is the endpoint? I know case studies where the product is same, the indication is same, but the endpoints are different. That's why one clinical trial succeeded, the other one failed. We have to define the endpoints. Then we have to reverse engineer the entire protocol. What is that you want to look? What are the secondary endpoints? What are the objectives? What is the inclusion criteria, exclusion criteria? So the learning step for us is about the precedented cases. The past cases, what has happened with them. You speak with at least those team members who have done that previously from India or USFDA. We will understand that to some extent. Then brainstorm it, speak with the consultant, speak with nodal bodies like BIRAC, AIC-CCMB, IKP Prime, or with IP consultants. Ample amount of them are there who want to help startups. You blend all of this and then you get a proper output. And what is the impression we had in the very early days is the drug is in the form of tablet. Making it is into nasal thing is not a big thing. You can make it in a matter of time. But what all the departments I spoke, we understood over the period of time. From a pharmacology point of view, a pharmacometric point of view, how to optimize the dose and all. So first you put the step into the water, then you'll start swimming. Yeah.
So the hope is that with today's session, we will start at least some exercise and jump with some support into the water.
One more point to add: what helps now the current entrepreneurs or the current date is, for the first time ever in the history of human race, we have artificial intelligence. Intelligence as a commodity. You can buy it like a bottle. $20, you get the artificial intelligence. You can prepare an AI agent to prepare the documents for you. That's a huge advantage.
Interesting. So I was just talking early at lunchtime, but we have AI, they can prepare a document, but we still have a maze to cross for regulatory, you think?
That is one tool. You have Excel, you have MS Word, you have AI. That will not solve the problem. You have to strategize the things. That will add a value. Yeah.
Thank you. Kamal, you have brought in multiple different products to market. Was there something that worked? Was it just one thing, that one learning that you had throughout that worked for your products? Was it that you had to improvise every time? I mean, I know the answer in some sense, but if you can elaborate some of the challenges that you faced building, adding more products to your, selling.
Yeah, definitely. Like in a product's life cycle, you have to consider rebuilding a product again based on the customer feedback, which is very much important. That way, like you can improve your continued journey of the product life cycle. At the same time, you can prove to the customer you are upgrading all the features of the product as well. So when it comes to the product, like as a startup or as if I'm starting any product, the first thing I would go with the DHF, design history file. The components of design history file or the D&D, design and development form, which will have around 22 different points over there. If I read, as a startup, if I read all these 22 points, in DMF you can call in CDSCO, which is device master file. When it comes to ISO 1348 for USFD, you can call DND, design and development form. All this form, like the points, is given stability of the product and also the risk factors, intended use. So if you define intended use properly, then you get to know all the other points how to write it. When it comes to the products, yeah, after launching, we did find some of the the problem. I don't say problems always can be rectified. At the same time, some of the features are missing over the competition. So with that, for the new development of the product, we always take a market feedback, market survey. Then after that, we see what need to be added or what how best we can build the product into the market. This is what we consider.
Add new features, you have to go through the whole regulatory requirement, or there are some features that they're just addition, so you may not require as rigorous regulatory paperwork than some cases.
Yes, if there are features that is really affecting the patient, definitely you have to notify. Either way, you have to prepare your DMF, like the form, whatever we have, the DHF file, we have to update. And also there is in CDSCO portal itself, there is a notify to body. So you always do that one for safety. In future, if somebody is walking into your facility for any inspection, you already have notified to the CDSCO body. You have to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there are. So we talked about, and in this case, you have not gone direct to consumer, except for you are direct to consumer, or is it still not?
We do direct to consumers, but through government or through the other bodies. We have our smart clinics, where our kits are used directly for the customers. But again, the important part in our solution is the doctor. Okay, because POCT can be used by technicians, ASHA, ANM, but the confirmatory has to be a doctor. So we never say that we say that we are giving a holding hand to the doctors, but we never say that we are skipping the doctor. Okay, the doctor has to be the part. But when you go directly towards the customer, tier 1 city people will have a lot of questions looking at the POCT because they understand technology. You go to public health, they will feel privileged that a government is bringing this technology to us. So this is the difference.
So how important it is to then, emphasize, all the regulatory compliance controls to the people who are operating your equipment, and basically, and I'll tell from one of my experience, and this is out there, but I was in NGS diagnostics, right? So we get blood samples for doing genetic disorder, and we received a blood sample, and we had all the QC in place, so we can track if there is contamination. It just seemed that somebody had contaminated. There was sample from 2 people. As a lab director, I lost sleep for 3 nights. We went back, and I couldn't even see a phlebotomist taking blood from one patient and adding it into a tube when there is already blood. And I had no answer. We did it again, and we got the same answer, right? And I reluctantly had to call the physician and say, there is some problem, we are seeing mixed allele frequency, the mutations are not showing. Oh, but does it help if the patient actually received transfusion before we sent the sample? So the patient, their blood, they had received someone else's blood. Of course, there are now two people with blood. So nobody made mistake, right? But when we got the sample, and I was like, yes, that makes complete sense. And this is just one incident, and we've had many other interactions. Of course, extreme case scenario, right? So running control, like when you are saying it can be operated at point of care, but making sure that the painstakingly regulatory compliance that you have gone through, you can actually educate the end user.
Right. I look at regulatory as a disciplinary action for ourselves. Okay. So when we decided to go for CDSCO, I come from a quality background. I have done my ISO 9001, so I'm an auditor. But CDSCO has a different, it's a different thing because it is a device for us. And when you decide to go ahead with CDSCO regulatory, you actually define your processes inside your own manufacturing or in your own company. So there are two things in that. CDSCO or regulatory gives your product the edge, how it should be in the market, the perfection, in the CDSCO they ask you for your, how the device works. So we have submitted that data as well to CDSCO. But when we are supposed to bring that device into the market, training to the technician is one of the most important thing. Okay, why it is important? That I believe that there are thousands of devices in all the the diagnostic the diagnostic package, right? But nobody thinks after a certain time how many times the device gets calibrated in a year. Okay, so sir said that engineers feel that they can give you the solution, but only engineers think that calibration is the most important thing in any device. So if I give a device to any doctor and he uses it, and if the answer is wrong or the measure is wrong, it is not a doctor, it is a device which is giving the incorrect answer. So my personal feel is, when I talk about CDSCO, I talk about calibration as well. These two things are very important because a regulatory can give the edge to your device, but these kind of practices can make sure that your POCTs are well established there where they are getting used.
Thank you. Would you like to add something to that? Like, did you have to face any compliance issues when you're giving it to your customers? Right? How do you emphasize that there is a calibration required, there is routine controls required, so that the and just like we said, so regulatory is a backbone, right? You have to integrate it into your thinking. It's how you do your work. And should this be included when you're developing your product, right? End user, who's going to use it? And we have to make sure that what you have done so painstakingly actually does the right thing where you're not there monitoring it.
Yeah, this is like one of the challenges even today we are facing this one. Because for the reason, the employment, what we have done in the field, right? We have not taken seasonal salespeople. We have taken the people who are masters in life sciences, who can really educate the technician level and the doctor level how to use a product, one thing. So with that, whenever we supply any product, we deliver the product, we always ensure that end user read the data sheet properly, the instructions for use. So after that, then after that we give a training to the customer. Then any new laboratories that they are deploying their immunohistochemistry or cancer pathology labs, definitely our people will be there and give the proper training and ensuring that they properly handle the devices what we are providing. So that is something even today we are facing challenge.
Thank you. I think we are on. I'll go, but just very last rapid fire, right? So we have students, we have budding entrepreneurs, innovators, startups, and academic sectors. What would be one advice if you were to just leave them with it? Now I'll start with you, Aditi.
I spoke to somebody some time back and I said कि ये कैसे पता चला? I said in life I only follow one thing. वो टाटा स्काई का एडवर्टाइजमेंट है ना, पूछने में क्या जाता है? You have to ask. You have to ask and you have to ask the right partner. And in my opinion, every startup, you can be on any stage, ideation, in process, any stage, TRL 1 to 9, holding hand of an incubator is the most important thing in Indian startup community. An incubator can lead you to the right place because incubators in India, including AIC-CCMB, whom I'm holding hand for last 6 years, has given us the right path to move ahead, to see what is there. Government comes up with amazing schemes for startups. They have coming up with amazing schemes, wonderful opportunities, but we have a limited scope of understanding it. Incubators can help you to go towards that. And second thing I would really like to, I feel, after going through the regulatory, the whole process, I think incubators should be empowered to guide us for the regulatory as well. They should be the partner with CDSCO because all the questions cannot be answered by CDSCO. It is a regulatory authority. We want buddy, like, incubators who can solve our questions, the basic problems what a startup goes through. I think if that is a combination, then the startup we really will go through a very good phase. Thank you.
Thank you. Shiva?
For the first 3-4 years, the objective is like innovation product. If we innovate product, you call him or her as an innovator. If you want to be an entrepreneur, the objective is to generate wealth. So entrepreneur is one who generate wealth. So to generate wealth, you need to position your product. Development of product involves only few departments, but to position your product and sell your product, there are a lot of departments which you need to learn, unlearn, and keep learning. So once that objective is clearly there, but that this is where I want to position my product, this is what I want, where I want to see my product, the entire mindset changes. That I think is key. We should not look just only at the product. We should look at where we can position the product.
Yeah, as Dr. Shiva said, like ultimately you have to earn the money out of the product. That's what the journey goes. So when it comes to that, never ever ignore regulatory. Unless you have, if you are making a medical device or if you are making any pharma product, it has to go with the regulatory approval. Unless you have that, you cannot move forward. To do that, at least you have to read all the regulatory compliances, and you should know your product well. You should know your customer well. More than that, you should know your regulatory very well. Otherwise, you cannot move into the market at all.
That's right. Funding is important. So thank you very much. My take home is पूछने में क्या जाता है, learn, relearn, and unlearn all again. And yes, know your relative well.
To stay informed about the startup ecosystem, subscribe to My Startup TV.